So let's jump into PyCharm and build that journal app. We're going to start, as always, by adding our program.py. And we're going to add other Python files and start using them. But let's first start here and focus on a few concepts before we move on. Now, as you guys know, I'm kind of fond of sketching out the overall flow of the app in one method and then breaking the pieces into smaller ones. So I'm going to define, again, a main method here. And the first thing we want to do is sort of print the header. Remember, that's basically the little dashes across the top we're always doing. And then we're going to go around and around in kind of an event loop, asking the user, what operation do you want to perform? We'll do that operation and we'll query for user input again. So I'll just call that run event loop. So we're going to need these two methods defined somewhere. And let's define them first up here. We'll say def print header, and we'll just say pass, and we'll say run event loop. Pass. Now let's one final time sort of do this what I would call the wrong way, but we're just going to invoke the main method. As you know, if we don't do that, nothing happens. Let's do a little print here. I'll go ahead and do our header piece, so that we can see that main is actually having some kind of effect. No run configuration, so we can generate one by saying right-click run. And here's our little journal app piece. Now, to me, the order of defining these methods is really wrong. I like to see the high-level bits, like what is happening overall, and then the little individual pieces. So let's take this and naively move this to the top here. There we go. And now our main, we can sort of, as soon as we open the file, we see what the major operations are happening in our program here. And then down we'll have the details. So if I run this though, things are not going to be very happy. Print header is not defined. So let's just take a really quick moment and think about how Python defines methods and classes and these sort of structures. In languages like C and C++, there's a compile step, and it actually goes through the code and it compiles and it writes out the machine instructions and the definition for these methods. But in Python, there's not really this compile step. There's kind of a tokenizing step, but let's ignore that for a moment. Basically, there's not really a compile step. So when you execute this block, when you execute line 2 to 4, what you're actually doing is you're defining a method main. And when you execute line 9 to 12, you're defining the method print header. The problem is we're executing main, which depends on print header, before we've effectively defined it by running this. So we can solve this problem by just putting main at the very bottom. Again, there's going to be another better way to do this that we're going to come back to at the end of this example. All right, so let's run it one more time. Okay, everything's looking good. We got our high-level code up here. We're working on the details down here. So let's work on that event loop part. Remember, we basically have a couple of operations the user can choose. They can list their journal entries, they can add a journal entry, or they can hit X to exit. So let's sketch out that sort of input conditional logic, and then we'll write the details of it. So first thing we're going to do is let's just do a little print statement to let the user know, hey, your journal app is running. I'll say something like, what do you want to do with your journal? And then we're going to capture the user input, and we'll call that command when using the input function like we have been, like so. And now we can compare this against our various options. So the three things they could type according to our menu option here is they could type L, A, or X. So we'll say if command is L, then let's just print the L for a moment. And then else if, or elif, command equals, we'll print A. Now, of course, this is just going to run one time, but let's just test this really quick. So we're going to run. It says, what do you want to do with your journal? Let's suppose we want to list it. So if we say L, it says, great. It echoes out the L here. If we run it again, this time we say A, it's going to echo out the A that we put in our little print statement. Of course, we want this to go around and around. So let's write some code here. Let's say, while the command is not equal to X, we want to do this. Now, of course, if we try to run it like this, it's going to freak out because command is not defined. You can see local variable command reference before assignment. So let's just initialize it to nothing to start, which obviously is not going to be X. After it goes into our loop the first time, we should have a real input. So let's try this. Let's say L, A, X. Perfect. Maybe we could add a little goodbye bit here at the end, just to let everybody know we're done with our app. So we pretty much have the structure working. Let's write one more bit here. So if I hit L, I get the L again. But if I hit something like boo, it just sort of ignores it, doesn't do anything. Let's maybe give them a warning that we don't understand that. So we'll come down here and say elif command is not equal to X or any of the other options, because we're already made it this far. We'll say print, sorry, we don't understand. Now notice we have our opening quote here and the quote that's naturally in the string. So we're going to do this. I told you there were times when you'd want to use double quotes for your strings because it makes life easier. This is one of them. We'll say we don't understand whatever the command was, and we can put that in little single quotes like this. And we'll say format. Okay, great. So let's run this one more time. We'll say L, A, and if I say boo, great. But there's a few things that are not quite yet right with our loop. So if I say lowercase l, so sorry, we don't understand lowercase l because we were checking against uppercase L and things like that. So let's stop this and fix that. So we can come down here and we can say lower on the string, and we can put that on all these. Put that here and make sure wherever we're comparing, we now compare against lowercase. Now if I can say uppercase L, lowercase l, and it seems to understand A, capital A. But if I put like a space and an L, well, all of a sudden it doesn't understand that anymore. So we can do one more thing to sort of make our input as nice as possible. We can do a strip here. All right, so now this should be really robust. We can say like capital L, space, space, lowercase l, A, X, done, goodbye. So I think we have that working well. Of course, if you care about performance or even code repetition, we're doing this 3 times. It might be nicer to do something like this. Do it once and then centralize that. So we'll say lower.strip, and then we can just work with it, assuming it's got no white space, and as always, lowercase. All right, let's finish sketching out the methods we're going to write, and then we'll move on to working with our data. So we basically need 2 more methods. One is going to be list entries, and I'll just print listing for now, just so we can see that it's working. And we need to find add entry, and I'll do a print adding, like that. And let's go over here and replace these pieces. We'll say list entries, and down here this will be add entry. One more time, make sure it runs, list, add, exit. Everything looks great.